To make the turkey, you first Xerox all of the pattern pieces. And then on the body and the gobbler and the beak and the foot, you're going to pin the paper pattern to 2 pieces of fabric that are placed right side together. And the body is also layered with batting. The others are not. Next, you're going to sew on the solid line and cut on this outside dash line. Notice the body is sewn all the way around, and when we turn it right side out, we're going to slit 1 layer of fabric and turn it through that slit. Once the feet are turned, a little extra batting can be put up into the toes, but you don't want the batting to be where it's added into the seam, because that will add extra bulk. Then your feet are ready for their quilt once they're stuffed. The gobbler is also sewn, the paper taken out and turned right side out, and then you hand gather the very end of that, and it'll be ready to put into our quilt. For the feathers, we're going to paper piece or foundation piece each one of these feathers. So a little review. We're going to start with our Xerox paper. We're going to cut a piece of fabric big enough to cover area 1. These will be added in the order that they're numbered. We place number 1 right side away on the unprinted side of the paper, and you can hold it up to the light to make sure that all of area number 1 is covered. You can pin that to secure it. Next, we need to figure out where the line between 1 and 2 is on the back, so we can crease that line, and that will transfer the location to the unprinted side. We're going to take a piece of fabric that's cut large enough to cover number 2, and we're going to place it right side down 1/4 of an inch past this crease. The bulk of the fabric is opposite the area we're trying to cover. And once this is placed, we're going to turn it over and sew on the line between 1 and 2. Now we've sewn on this line. We turn it over. You can open it up to check to make sure it's going to cover all of area 2. This part is extra, and we can trim that. Want to press that, and then we'll be ready to do area number 3. And again, you can crease it so you know where to lay your fabric. Take another piece of fabric and lay it right side down. So it's 1/4 of an inch past the crease, and so the bulk of the fabric is opposite the area. And we're going to continue doing this all the way around the feathers. Now that each of those sections has been foundation pieced or paper pieced onto our paper pattern, we're going to layer this with a piece that will go behind the feather, so it won't really show, but it's still important. It's layered also with a very thin batting. Next, we're going to sew on this solid scallop outside line. Now that the scallop has been stitched and cut on the outside dash line, we start to remove the paper. Once the paper is removed, we're going to turn it right side out, and we're going to press it carefully so we don't flatten the loft in the batting, but we want each of these scallops to be well defined. Now that this piece has been turned and pressed carefully, we stuffed a little extra stuffing up in the points of the feathers and then machine quilted down each section, giving it just a nice little dimension. Here is our body that's sewn all the way around, and because it's all the way around, there's not an opening, so we need to trim a little hole, and then we're going to turn it right side out through the hole and press it so it's well defined, and then we can whip stitch the opening closed, and that opening goes against the quilt so it won't show. Now in finishing his body, we've added a little extra stuffing before we whip stitched the slit closed, and then the little feet are whip stitched to the back as well, so they'll be attached to his little body. Then his beak was pre-made. We're going to add a little extra stuffing down in the point. And you place the beak across the body this way. And we're going to machine sew 1/4 of an inch seam and zigzag. And then when we turn it, it'll flip against that seam. We're going to clip these little extras that are showing. Now that the beak is sewn, we've hand gathered our gobbler, and we're going to just attach it right there at the corner of the beak before we bring the beak down and tack it in place. Now we've cut 2 pieces of background fabric that measure 14.5 inches across by 9 inches deep for the top piece and 14.5 inches across by 5.5 inches for the bottom piece. We've placed our feathers on the top piece of background and sewed the bottom piece of fabric on, enclosing these 2 edges. And then our turkey body is placed about 1 inch down from this seam, and we're going to blind stitch around his body to hold it. Then we are going to backlight the top and the bottom so we can trace the words, and with 2 strands of embroidery floss we'll outline stitch those words and add our border, sandwich it, bind it. Now we're going to add some dancing pumpkins to our turkey. We've placed 2 pieces of fabric right side together on top of batting. Take a copy of our pumpkin, place it on the top, and just sew right on the paper. We're going to sew on the solid outside line, and then we'll cut the paper away. Now because it's sewn all the way around, we need a way to turn it. So once the paper has been removed, we're going to try to get just 1 piece of fabric with some scissors, make a slit, and turn it through that slit. Now we've added some stuffing through the slit, and we cut out just this center circle, place it right on the top, and then machine quilt the sections of the pumpkin. Then we've got a little stick, and we just whip stitch on the back of the pumpkin, a little raffia, and sew that raffia on, and then on our turkey, once it's all put together with a border and the words, we're just going to place these little pumpkins, blind stitch them onto our quilt, and just make them dance around the border. And that just adds a lot of fun play. And if you use some of the fabrics that are in the feathers, that will make the eye bounce around the quilt. We'll add just a real fun look to this quilt. I hope you enjoy this pattern.